Good evening. Thank you everyone for coming. I really appreciate Director Marguerite Young and EBMUD team to be here with us this evening. My name is Sohaila Bana. I'm a candidate running for District 4 in Richmond. And when I was canvassing, when I was talking about people voting for me, they start complaining about EBMUD and their building plans and everything. So that's how I learned about it. That's the positive thing about canvassing, that you learn about things that are negative to the community. I reached out to EBMUD and I'm very glad that they graciously accepted our invitation, even though it's not within their working hours. We have with us Director Young, who has been on the board for 2 terms and is running for the 3rd term. From EBMUD, we have Stella, the project engineer, who will have a presentation for us. We also have Dave Rehnstrom, the engineering manager, Tim McGowan. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, senior engineer, you can correct me, and Rolando Gonzalez, the community efforts rep. And I'm very glad to have seen Mona, I guess, here somewhere. I think she's with us too, from EBMUD, maybe not. Okay, with that, I'm asking Director Young to start with an introduction about the project. Marguerite, please. You need to unmute.
I follow my directions about muting carefully and then forget to unmute. Thank you, Sohaila, and I'm very happy to see so many of you here. When we presented this project in March, I think it was, we had not nearly this good of a turnout. So there'll be many more workshops on this project as it goes forward. As Sohaila said, I'm director for EBMUD in Ward 3, which covers El Sobrante, the unincorporated Richmond area, Pinole on this side, all the stuff that's on your side of 80. And then I go up Dam Road to Rinda Moraga, and then up and over the hills to Oakland and Piedmont. So I like to say that my area hugs our local watershed. I'm, very, it's been a pleasure to work at EBMUD to protect public health and the environment. As you know, tonight we're going to be talking about the upgrades to the Sobrante water treatment plant that we have planned in the coming years. This project is an investment in our water infrastructure. EBMUD is coming up on a 100-year anniversary next year, and a lot of our infrastructure is, ready for renewal and ready for upgrade as we meet the challenges ahead due to climate change, but also to make sure that we're reliably serving water, fresh, safe, clean water, 24/7, 365 to our customers. Then this project will help improve the reliability of our long-term water supply. Before I turn it over to the project team to get into specifics, I just want to emphasize, how important it is to have clean and safe water. It's probably not something that y'all need much reminding about, but EBMUD is a not-for-profit public water agency. A lot of people think we're a company like PG&E, investor-owned. No, we're a public agency, a public entity. We have managed over 325 square miles of watershed land, much of that in your backyard. And we've provided quality, reliable, great tasting drinking water to the people of the East Bay for nearly 100 years. As I said, we're coming up on that anniversary. And we're making upgrades to all of our facilities to continue to serve you, our customers, for another 100 years and beyond. There are ways for you to connect to us. You can find us at our website, ebmud.com. You can follow us at EBMUD on Nextdoor, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. We post regularly on all of those platforms. Sobrante Water Treatment Plant Reliability, and it's a mouthful, Sobrante Water Treatment Plant Reliability Improvements Project Team, who will provide more detail about the need, scope, and schedule, and how you can provide comments and contribute to the project's success. At this time, I want to turn it over to Stella Tan, our project manager. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Take it
much.
away, Stella.
Thanks, Dr. Young. Let me share my screen here. Let's see. And situate. All right, you guys can see my pointer okay?
Yes.
In the presentation? All right. Well, thanks again for the introduction, Marguerite. Before I jump into the details of the project, I'll first provide some context for the project with a brief overview of EBMUD's water system. EBMUD water begins as snowmelt in the McGowan River watershed. The water is stored in the Pardee Reservoir before it travels 85 miles through our pipelines to the EBMUD service area. Our service area has 1.4 million customers in 29 cities in Alameda and Contra Costa counties. We have 6 water treatment plants, and water is distributed through our many reservoirs and pumping plants to our customers through 4,200 miles of pipeline. This project will take place in one of our 6 water treatment plants at the Sobrante Water Treatment Plant, as you're all aware. And we plan to increase the Sobrante Water Treatment Plant capacity by constructing new facilities in 2 phases. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to introduce you to the project, including preliminary site plans and conceptual visual simulations, which we've revised since the March public meeting. We would also like to receive your feedback and concerns. To provide some context for the project schedule, we're currently in the planning stage of the project, where we're developing the conceptual design and executing the environmental review and public outreach. After planning is completed, we'll begin phase 1 design, which includes the design of the phase 1 structures and completion of agency permitting. Phase 1 construction then follows, where we'll construct those phase 1 structures. Next is phase 2 design, which includes the design of those phase 2 structures, as well as pipeline and completion of agency permitting. And the last phase or stage is phase 2 construction, where we construct that phase 2 pipeline and structures. Tonight's agenda includes an introduction of the project team, the project location, the purpose, need, and description, the conceptual visual simulations. I'll also provide an overview of environmental review process and schedule. I'll provide the next steps, and then there'll be an opportunity for questions and comments. I would like to request that everyone save their questions for the end of the presentation in case any of the information provided answers a question you may have. And diving right in,
excuse me, may I ask everyone to please mute themselves? Thank you. Sorry, Stella, go ahead.
That's okay. So diving right in, I'll introduce the project team. As I mentioned, my name is Stella Tan, and I'm the planning phase project manager. I'm working with Tim McGowan, the project senior civil engineer, and Dave Rehnstrom, the manager of water distribution planning division, like Sohaila mentioned. Rolando Gonzalez is our community affairs representative, and we're working with a consultant, Panorama Environmental, and their sub-consultants, which include MWA Architects, our project architect, and Merrill Morris Partners, the landscape architect. So Panorama is helping EBMUD develop an environmental impact report, and MWA and MMP, or Merrill Morris Partners, is helping to develop the project aesthetic design. Now, in the interest of internet bandwidth, I'm going to turn off my video for the rest of my presentation. All right. So this project has 2 locations, which includes the new structures at the Sobrante Water Treatment Plant and the new pipeline as shown here. Those new structures will be constructed at the Sobrante Water Treatment Plant, which is located east of Highway 80, north of San Pablo Dam Road and northwest of San Pablo Reservoir, which supplies this water treatment plant. The pipeline is called the Central North Aqueduct Pipeline, and it is required to convey the increased water treatment plant capacity as a part of phase 2. The pipeline is located in the communities of El Sobrante and Rollingwood and in the cities of Richmond and San Pablo. The project purpose and need is to meet existing and future water demands, to maintain water quality and reduce disinfectant byproducts, to support drought operations, and to provide treatment capacity for changing untreated water quality or planned untreated water aqueduct outages. The scope of the project includes constructing new structures to increase reliable capacity of the Sobrante water treatment plant, and will do so in 2 phases. Phase 1 in the near term is 60 million gallons per day, and phase 2 in the long term is 80 million gallons per day. After phase 1 is completed, we'll demolish the structures at the existing Sobrante water treatment plant, and in phase 2, we'll construct the Central North Aqueduct pipeline, which is required to convey that phase 2 treatment capacity. And to provide some context on the water treatment capacity, the 60 and 80 MGD capacity are needed to supply future demands in the area that's shown here in red. The area spans from Richmond to Crockett and includes everything in between. This aerial photo here shows the existing Sobrante water treatment plant. The phase 1 improvements are shown here in yellow, and it includes the phase 1 treatment structures and the stormwater basin. In phase 1, we'll also add a maintenance building and parking, which consolidates all of the existing maintenance activities that are currently scattered throughout the water treatment plant. And after phase 1 is completed, we'll also demolish the structures that are shown here. Let me unmute myself.
Thank you.
After the phase 1 structures or the phase 1 construction begins in 2026 and ends in 2030 under current estimates. And the demolition work will be completed at the tail end of those improvements. Let me see, I think, there you go. Phase 2 improvements are shown here in pink. And for those of you who attended our meeting in March, we added these 2 additional structures since that time. These facilities were originally space planned for the location shown. However, after planning evaluations, we determined that these facilities would be required as a part of phase 2 due to potential local limited sewer capacity. And all of these structures, including these additional structures, will be included as a part of our project and environmental analysis. The phase 2 improvements are currently scheduled to occur after 2035, and the construction schedule will depend on whether project water demands are realized. As a part of phase 2, we'll also construct the Central North Aqueduct pipeline shown here relative to the location of the Savante water treatment plant. The pipeline is located on La Honda Road. It turns south on De Avila Way, west on San Pablo Dam Road, northwest on El Portal Drive, continues on Rollingwood Drive, and then turns onto Road 20, crossing San Pablo Avenue. The segments that are shown in blue here are 54-inch diameter, and the yellow portion is 72-inch diameter. Noting that a portion of this pipeline was already constructed as a part of Caltrans improvements. This entire pipeline will be located underground, so it will not be visible after it's completed. To give you an idea of what the improvements will look like at the Sobrante water treatment site after construction, I'll share some details on the aesthetic and landscape design that was developed with the help of our project architect and landscape architect. The slide here shows the key public buildings that are located near Sobrante water treatment plant and existing features of the Sobrante water treatment plant. We evaluated these features with the help of our architects so that the resulting design would fit in with the surrounding context. The images of nearby key buildings and these Sobrante water treatment plant features were reviewed in detail. And the Sobrante water treatment plant as a working site, the buildings and materials are designed to be simple and durable. There are some expressive roofs at this location that are visible from public roadways, and they're shown here in these two photos. All of these features were considered as a part of the facility design. The surrounding area was also reviewed and to understand the local landscapes so that the landscape design could fit into the existing neighborhood context. So shown here are photos of the typical vegetated areas that represent the surrounding area, which includes the neighborhood. As you're aware, the neighborhood is primarily residential, and we observe primarily manicured yards that take into consideration our area's drought conditions. At the perimeter of the water treatment plant, there are sloping hillsides and mature trees and brush that help screen the views of the site. At the water treatment plant itself, the plantings are very minimal and very intentionally placed. Based on the architect's evaluation of the existing water treatment plant and neighborhood features, the building designs shown here were developed. The buildings include a maintenance building and 3 process buildings shown here. The simple geometry, durable materials, and natural lighting are features that were incorporated into the building design, and that includes sloped roofs with high-level windows that allow natural light in, as well as concrete panels that match the existing water treatment plant, and for the maintenance building, metal panels that complement the concrete. The staff-occupied portions of the maintenance building are oriented towards the entrance to create a more friendly, less industrial view of the site from the entrance. And these buildings the building designs all aim to blend in with the existing water treatment plant as well as the neighboring public buildings. Shown here is an aerial image of the existing water treatment plant with the proposed improvements. Amend Road is shown here in the foreground, and Valley View Road is shown here on the right. The proposed improvements are located within the existing water treatment plant as well as in this northern property. And those improvements are highlighted here with the yellow dotted line. And because most of these improvements are located in this northern property, our landscape design is primarily focused along Amend Road shown here. This plan shows the location of the existing facilities, the proposed facilities, as well as new landscaping that's proposed along Amend Road. The project landscape architect completed a study to observe the changes to key site views as a result of the project. Because the Sobrante water treatment plant has sloping hillsides with mature landscaping along the southwest side, along Valley View Road, on the northeast side along Amend Road, and below Fascination Circle, most of the site views are minimally changed as a result of the project. And so we took this into consideration as we selected our key site views. And our key site views include the first view at the entry road, second view at Heavenly Ridge Lane and Amend Road, both looking south. View 3 on Amend Road on the west side, looking southeast. And view 4, Christopher Court, looking east at the water treatment plant. And shown on this slide are the existing views at each of those selected viewpoints where the project will be most visible. I'll show these larger in the upcoming slides, but I just wanted to note that the diagram here helps orient you as to where each of these viewpoints are located relative to the Sobrante water treatment plant facilities. To provide screening for the project improvements while blending in with the neighborhood landscaping, the project landscape architect created a conceptual plant palette, which includes the trees that are shown here. There are a variety of native and adapted trees, including conifers, some flowering, and some deciduous trees, or those that lose their leaves in the winter, and those will provide some seasonal change. The shrubs and smaller perennials shown here are also included as a part of the conceptual plant palette. These plants will be used underneath trees to help screen the lower level views and to help blend the landscaping into the neighborhood setting. All of the plants that are selected are adapted to our summer dry climate, and they all have low water use to provide that value to our local ecosystem. So this is the view this is view number 1 of the entry road looking south under existing conditions. And this is the conceptual view after construction if all improvements are completed before the landscaping is installed. And during our public meeting in March, we received requests for improved aesthetics along Amend Road. We were able to obtain approval from our security team to use an alternate security fence and also some low landscaping along Amend Road. This exterior fence no longer has the barbed wire, and it also is more of a mesh type fence instead of a chain link fence to soften the look. And in addition, we've also shifted the fence slightly back to add that landscaping in front of the fence. And you'll see those plantings in the following images. So this is a view of the entrance road after 5 years of landscape growth. And you'll notice that the landscaping is placed in front of the fence here. And this is after 5 years, the size of the shrubs and trees will be, or the shrubs will be at their mature width and height, and the trees will begin to show more of a presence and help screen part of the water treatment plant facility. And this is the view from the entry road after 10 years. The shrubs will have reached their mature height and the trees will approach their mature height. This is the view from Heavenly Ridge Lane and Amend Road under existing conditions looking south. This is the conceptual view after construction of all improvements are completed, again with the revised fence. And this is before landscaping is installed. And this is after 5 years of growth, where the shrubs will approach their mature width and height, and trees will begin to show more of a presence and screen parts of the water treatment plant facilities. And this is again at 10 years, the shrubs will have reached their mature height and the trees will approach their mature height. The third view is on Amend Road looking southeast under existing conditions. This is the conceptual view after construction of all improvements are completed before the landscaping is installed. Again, after 5 years of growth, shrubs will approach their mature width and height to screen parts of the water treatment plant facilities. And again, at 10 years, the shrubs will have all reached their mature height. This is our last view. This is the view from Christopher Court, about halfway up the road looking east. At this location, the elevation is higher than Valley View Road. This is the conceptual view after construction of all improvements are completed before the landscaping is installed. This is after 5 years of growth, the trees will begin to show more of a presence and screen parts of the water treatment plant facilities. And this is after 10 years when the trees are approaching their mature height. Next, I'll talk about the environmental review process and schedule. As you may already know, the EBMUD is preparing an environmental impact report for this project. For those of you who are not familiar with an environmental impact report, or EIR, an EIR is required under the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. All state and local government agencies are required to complete an EIR if there's a potential that their project may have significant impacts. And the purpose of an EIR is to inform the public of the environmental consequences of projects. The environmental factors listed here will be reviewed as a part of the EIR process and are discussed in the initial study for the EIR that is available on the EBMUD website, and that's linked here. The factors that will be evaluated will include aesthetics, biology, noise, and traffic, which were of concern. And as a part of the EIR, we will evaluate whether these environmental categories are less than significant with mitigation, or significant and unavoidable. The schedule shown here shows each step in the CEQA EIR process. We begin by preparing site and landscape conceptual plans. In March, we issued a notice of preparation via postcards, email, and social media channels to request comments for the EIR scope from agencies and community stakeholders. On March 24th, we held the public scoping meeting, and today is an additional public meeting based on community requests. The next steps for the EIR include completing an environmental analysis and publishing a draft EIR. And we'll then follow up with public meetings to receive feedback on the draft EIR. So you'll have additional opportunity to comment as the project progresses. The draft EIR is currently scheduled for completion between fall of 2023 and winter of 2024. And then the final EIR is anticipated for completion between summer and fall of 2024. And in the final EIR, we'll address public comments on the draft EIR and also seek EBMUD Board of Director approvals. Our next steps include receiving feedback from tonight's public meeting and also preparing the draft EIR, which I mentioned would be released in fall of 2023 to winter 2024. And this slide here shows our contact information and where you can find additional information. We'll also post these slides on our website, so you'll have access to this information as well. And you can reference any of the slides that were shown today. But you can contact us through email as shown here or through physical mail. And now I want to open it up for questions and comments. And I'd like to suggest maybe that we use a hand raising method in case there's multiple questions at one time.
Thank you very much, Stella. I appreciate it. Director Young, would you like to add a word before we take questions?
Yeah, I mean, I've been watching the chat. I understand that there's a fair amount of concern about the project, and what I want to you may not be used to having agencies respond or really take into account the concerns and interests that you have. I can assure you that that is something that we want to do. That can include all kinds of things about changing. It sounds like we've already changed some of the landscaping plans in response to the comments we got in the spring. We're undertaking a similar very large project at the Orinda water treatment plant and have taken in quite a lot of public comment and suggestions that I believe have really improved the project. One of those that I want to actually ask Stella and the team to comment on, in Orinda, the plan is to do the landscaping, as much of it as possible, before the project starts, like as soon as it can start, so that when the project's completed, you actually have, maybe you have the 5-year landscape there. So Stella, I'm wondering if that's something that you all have factored into thinking about, because in addition to the obvious construction noise and impact there, how it looks when you're driving by, makes a big difference.
Yeah.
So what I want to, before open up, is that really we care about what you think, and we want the project to reflect community needs and concerns, and we will do everything that we can to support that while still being able to do this very critical infrastructure upgrade. Okay, so just to put that out there for everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, and I can start by speaking to the request for installing the landscaping early in advance, and we can evaluate kind of exactly how much we could possibly do that. In this case, a lot of our landscaping is very close to where the construction will be located. So our primary objective there would be not to install anything that could possibly be damaged by construction, but we'll definitely look at opportunities to install the landscaping early on before construction starts.
Thank you, Stella. And thank you, Marguerite. Cliff, go ahead, please. Unmute yourself first, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I don't know if it's possible, but can you put page 15 up again, please?
Let's see.
Should we get the next question while Stella's doing that? Is that okay, Cliff?
Yeah, as long as I get to
Sure, you'll be
make
after
my
Ingrid.
comments, yes.
Sure, Ingrid, go ahead.
Hi, all. I have actually, I live dead across the street from the plant. Literally, my front door and my office look out over it. I'm probably going to be one of the most deeply impacted people of all. And I have a lot of questions. My first one is, why not do the expansion backwards rather than forwards? I realize that this is a nice flat field out front, but there's all this space behind you. Granted, it's hilly, but it would be adequate space to be able to do your expansions with having almost zero impact on the neighborhoods, as that area is, you know, it's not faced by any houses. It all faces out onto Valley View.
Yeah, and maybe for that question, I'll go back a slide to explain that. So the improvements that you mentioned about starting over here as opposed to in this front property, the challenge is that the facilities that are located in this northern property here are not the same type of facilities that are currently located here. The ones over here are the ones that are most critical for our phase 1 purposes, which include being able to increase our reliable capacity, because it's currently this type of treat. These are mostly solids handling and disinfection facilities, and these over here are currently not restricted for the phase 1 capacity. These are really needed for phase 2. Yeah.
So I understand that, but look at all the dead space between your existing facilities and Valley View. Why not go in that direction, as which would have minimal impact on any housing or residential areas, because you already have your 2 existing plants on the either side of that, as opposed to coming over here, which is going to have a huge visual and residential impact.
Yeah, I can see if you look at this view here, it kind of gives you a sense that we have a lot of space here. But as you're driving along Valley View Road, what you'll notice is that these hillsides are very steep, and there also have been some stability issues here, such as landslides. So in terms of construction, this is really a much more challenging space to work in. That it's just not an ideal space to be trying to build things in from the perspective of safety.
So it's challenging, but not undoable. It's just easier to go into this northern area of the property then?
I almost
I'm putting you on the spot, but I mean, these are serious concerns.
Yeah, and you know, I can as a part of our EIR, we do evaluate geology, and I'm pretty sure that this area has been evaluated. I can't answer your question right this moment, but I can provide a response to you at a later time as to exactly what the geotechnical issues are. I'm not myself a geotechnical engineer, so I'm probably not the most qualified to explain it.
All right.
Stella, sorry, Ingrid, I was gonna suggest that we have a follow-up meeting, so the questions that cannot be answered immediately, maybe we can follow up in a month or 2, or whenever EBMUD team think is appropriate.
I will defer to Cliff at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I take over? Perhaps you could scroll down. Let's go down 1. Stop. Back. Okay, here we are. If you look on the left-hand side, you will see the fire station. And I was involved in the design review committee for that structure. Initially, the architect proposed a building like one of the other 3 on the right, which, by the way, are really nowhere near this new facility that you're proposing, and don't in any way reflect the architectural style of the residential area in which we live. That point was made to the architect for the city of Richmond. he took it with both hands and came back with the new design. Now, if you look at the photograph that's been taken, it's been taken slap on the front so that it looks like a semi-industrial building, somewhat residentialized. But in actuality, as you pass the structure and you see it from the roads, most of us drive cars these days, it actually fits in very, very well. And it has the same kind of roof and it has the same kind of walls. And I think they've done an excellent job, and it actually will help to hide all the things that you plan to do on your site. So I wanted to point that out, and I wanted you to ask your architect to think long and hard about exactly what they are proposing, because it doesn't look very promising to me. I think what you're doing here is trying to provide criteria which would make the industrial site that you're proposing look more acceptable, but frankly, it's not. And I think the precedent set by the city of Richmond is a lesson to be learned. So some other notes I have here in no particular order. Regarding the landscaping, I'd like some reassurance on the fire safety of the selected trees and shrubs. Obviously, some are better than others, and I'm not an expert in the area, but I know it's a concern. Industrial, okay, it's already been said, it's an industrial site within a residential district. The buildings all look industrial, as do the fences, however pretty you describe them as looking, they're industrial fences. And the other thing that surprises me is that throughout the presentation, the words that the landscaping will screen part of the facility. Nowhere did you say you're going to screen the whole thing. And Ms. Young, you were good enough to emphasize the interest of EBMUD in considering the concerns of the neighborhood. And so I'd just like to hold you to that, if I may. And then off-site, when we get to San Pablo Dam Road, you're putting a 52-inch main right the way through the middle of El Sobrante. El Sobrante is probably not the most fashionable place in Contra Costa County, but I've seen these kinds of projects completely destroy what exists of the commercial operation within the neighborhood. So you're going to go straight the way down from, I'm thinking pretty much from Castro Ranch Road all the way into San Pablo by Rayleigh's. And not quite that far, I guess. But the actual work that will be taking place is going to take a considerable amount of time. And even though the 52-inch pipes won't be visible after all the work has been carried out, the trenches have been dug, all the support work and everything that's necessary is provided, the pipes are lowered into place, and then everything's covered up. Well, in that construction period, of which I have some personal experience, it's going to be a long time, and the businesses on each side of the road are going to suffer accordingly. So I'd like EBMUD to address that whole issue. And with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Cliff.
It's true.
Anybody would like to respond to Cliff's comments?
Sorry, I realized I was muted. Thanks for your comments, Cliff. We will note your comment on the key buildings. And regarding the screening of all or part of the facilities. We had mentioned this at our last meeting, if you were able to attend. Primarily, we aren't able to fully screen all of our facilities because of security concerns. We're really balancing our ability to maintain some security visibility with screening all of the structures. So generally, we don't aim to screen them all.
More attractive building.
And your other comment regarding the business impacts, when we construct our pipelines, we usually do those in segments. And as a result, each segment shouldn't be so long of a time period that it should have a large impact on a business, but also we try to maintain access on that road. So we'll definitely do our best to maintain good communication as we're working in certain areas. And it's definitely a priority to us to maintain as much access from a transportation perspective as possible. Our EIR does evaluate transportation, and we'll describe that in greater detail.
Okay, thank you, Stella. Before I get the next question, actually, I told Ingrid that we will have another meeting, but I have not heard from the EBMUD team if that's going to be the case. The question was regarding considering the rest of the property, evaluating if it's doable to build the building in other portions rather than so close to amend. And if it's going to be at a higher cost, I think it should be considered the decrease of cost in property values in the surrounding area and the quality of life impact that the residents will have. Can we have a promise from you that you're going to look into it and get back to us and we have another meeting?
Yeah, so in terms of choosing another location, the reason that we're choosing to expand this water treatment plant is because we already have a water treatment plant here, and we're not completely constructing a whole new water treatment plant. We're really replacing existing infrastructure. So there's a lot of value here that we.
No, I'm not questioning the location in El Sobrante. I'm questioning using, as Ingrid suggested, the back of the property close to Valley View Road.
Oh, the sloped portion.
Yes.
Yes, we can respond to that. And in terms of another meeting, and maybe Dave can speak to this, but I will
speak to it. I'll speak to it. We will have as many meetings. We will meet with you as much as we need to.
Thank you. And it's not that we want a response. We actually expect that looking into it and evaluating and honestly considering it, we would very much appreciate it. I know EBMUD is an excellent agency. I attended the Water Academy. I have a lot of respect for EBMUD, but I just wanted the residents to know that what the process is, so they ask their questions with more confidence.
So we can have the EIR look at the possibility of using other parts of the property for for that. It will evaluate the environmental impact of doing so and the environmental suitability of doing so.
Okay.
As well as the other things that an EIR needs to account for.
Okay. All right. I have comments and questions myself, but I let the neighbors go first. Alex, you're next.
Hi. So I really want to just echo some of what Cliff said, as I think he's exactly right that about the aesthetics of the project. I really wonder why a design that's more in line with the residential architectural styles in the neighborhood isn't being considered. It really looks very industrial to me, and it doesn't seem like it fits in very good with the neighborhood at all. The Orinda water treatment plant comes to mind as a good example of something that looks a lot more in line with the architectural styles of the area. It doesn't like stand out like a sore thumb, and they've softened the industrial feel a little bit. And like Cliff mentioned, even the firehouse, again, it's just much more in line with what the neighborhood looks like. And I just wonder, is there any possibility that the architects could kind of go back to the drawing board and present some other possibilities for the aesthetic of the buildings themselves?
Thank you, Alex. And may I add to that, that if you go to Berkeley, the water treatment plant or the EBMUD facility right next to the Rose Garden, it looks even more beautiful than the Rose Garden itself. It's gorgeous.
There is no reason that this is Director Young. I mean, there's no reason that we can't take another look at the architectural design of the building, okay? Buildings. Our Orinda expansion is in keeping with the architecture at the Orinda plant. The architecture at the Sobrante plant, it's not great, right? So to the extent that we can improve it and make it look better, I think that's and more suitable. There's no reason that that can't be accomplished. We are early days, folks. Early days.
Good. Thank you very much. Tashina?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I just want to add to people's comments regarding the aesthetics. Although you may have upgraded from the chain link fence to this supposedly nicer mesh fence, I think it is completely inappropriate for the neighborhood, in addition to the buildings looking, industrial. So I would ask that also the fence be reconsidered. Sorry, I'm working out right now if you hear me panting. The fence be reconsidered to something a lot nicer, maybe like wood or something better. I mean, 10 years down the road, it might look nice once the trees cover everything. But until then, it does not fit in the neighborhood whatsoever.
Thank you, Tashina.
That's about all. Yeah, no problem. I mean, I do also have a question about the smell. Like, people had made a comment about the smell as well. So what can be done, if anything, to address that issue?
Yeah, we don't expect there to be any odor issues as a result of these facilities. We currently have similar facilities to those that are located closer to Amend Road at our Walnut Creek water treatment plant, and we haven't had any odor issues at those facilities.
Okay, thank
Okay, how about the fence?
In terms of the fence, we'll take a look at what we can do there. Like I mentioned, we do try to balance the security visibility since we are trying to protect a public water supply, but we'll see what we can do in terms of a more aesthetic option.
And when you say security, are like security cameras also part of this construction?
We don't generally
What do
put
Well, I'm just wondering, you say security, who's looking through the fence other than the neighbors across the street?
An aspect of security, being able to look through provides a level of security because someone who might have poor intentions might go into the water treatment plant and feel like they have, like no one can see what they're doing. And so we like to have visibility through the fence from both sides so that if someone's there, you can see them.
Okay. On the opposite side of Amend, I'm not sure exactly what that is, but isn't that the one on the corner of Amend and Castro Ranch? Isn't that also an EBMUD thing?
I think maybe you're referring to these facilities over here.
Because whatever that is, it has a nice wood fence.
Castro Ranch.
Yes, that is also.
Yeah, it's on the very opposite end of Amend.
Property.
It's on the corner of
possible.
Amend and Castro Valley. And it
I
has a
wonder-
very nice fence.
I wonder
No,
if it's one
Castro
of,
Ranch.
yeah, I wonder if it's one of our reservoirs and pumping plant facilities, which would have different security requirements. But I can I'll note it and I'll see what type of fence is used there in case it's something that could be an option for a water treatment plant. But we do have higher security requirements for a water treatment plant versus our pumping plants or reservoirs.
Okay, thank you for looking into that. Because yeah, they just redid that fence not long ago, and it's a beautiful wood fence and fits better into the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thanks for your
Thank you.
comment.
Mickey, go ahead, please.
Thanks. Yes, I have a few questions too. Looking at this structure, what are the three squares that are closest to amend? Is that water? Does it look like water? Or is it actual buildings?
These, and I can go to a different slide to help. Maybe this one's a better one. These are
Yeah, what is
equalization
that?
These are equalization basins. Water is sent from the water treatment plant to these basins for treatment.
Okay, so it'll look like water near the
Mhm.
street. Okay.
Yeah.
And back to the other building, I was a little confused about what structures are coming down.
Yeah, they're on the other side of the road on Valley View Road. Let me go back to that one. Sorry if it's, yeah, this
Yeah.
one here. These are being replaced by the system that's being installed here. So these ones over here are being demolished. They're currently basins and a pumping plant.
Okay, so the ones on La Honda are going to be a lot, it's going to be fewer buildings there now after they're demolished?
Yeah, these are actually partially buried structures. So right now it won't really
Oh.
look like a full it's like a short, lower than what you would expect from a building.
Oh, okay. Because
Mhm.
I was at the meeting when the landscaping was being discussed around this property. And I know that the people who had a home right on La Honda Court, where those houses that are kind of perpendicular to that, they had trees cut down. And they were so dissatisfied because they ended up really looking over the buildings, and it's from a natural big tree kind of environment. They ended up having to live next door, and their view is of something that does look like a small prison facility. And they're very unhappy. I don't know what stage you're at on the landscaping on that at this point. But I'm hoping that the landscaping, if it does happen at this facility, will happen before, so it doesn't really impact and look so industrial like people are complaining. And I also hope that they could come up with a better design so it does fit in the neighborhood. And my other question was about the pipeline. Will that
I'm
has
sorry,
not been
Mickey,
built?
but we're running out of time. There are other
Okay.
people. Can we come back second round for your second question if there is time?
Yeah, I just wanted to know if the pipeline would impact the creeks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I would like to ask East Bay Mud team if they could extend it a bit. We are 5 minutes to 7. I usually keep the meetings to the time, but this is very important and some people have questions. Is that okay?
Sure, yeah. I'm
Thank
just
you
gonna
so
go turn on my room light really quickly.
Okay, thanks. Dominic, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you for giving me this chance to speak. I want to start off with a few bits of context and caveats. I want to touch on certain aspects of the aesthetics and the environmental impact report, and I also want to address this as a equity concerns of the project. I want to thank the staff for taking the time to listen. That is really important. And I also appreciate the fact that the district is putting capital improvements into the system. The quality of the water that we get here is really quite splendid, and I know we need infrastructure improvements generally, but the project impact, especially to this northern property, the empty field, is deeply alarming and upsetting. I want to acknowledge that many of us don't like change and have a negative first reaction to things happening in their backyard, not in my backyard, literally, if you will, but it's naturally disappointing to hear, first of all, that under any circumstances we'd lose the beautiful field. Being in the neighborhood for almost 30 years, we always see beautiful scenes of a grassy field shrouded in the morning fog or frost. We watch blue herons and egrets patrolling the field, and losing that. And then, of course, with any project, no matter how well executed, construction noise, dirt, etc., it simply just always will be an impact. But again, for this project specifically, I'm left with some deep concerns. And let me start with the language that's in the EIR, and I'll quote directly. New facilities that are proposed to be constructed would be visually integrated into the existing SOWTP, the water treatment plant, which is already a visual element of the site and surrounding views. So the new facilities would maintain the existing visual character of the SOWTP. The nature, scale, and locations of the proposed facilities could affect the visual quality and character of the site due to closer proximity to the residential areas. So with all due respect, the language in the EIR here utterly lacks credibility. First of all, the nature, scale, and locations of the proposed facilities will affect the visual quality and character. That's unavoidable based on the scope of what this project is saying that it's going to do. And I know I'm an engineer. I work on a project with limited space. I understand technical and space challenges and the sort of language that's used in technical documents, but it's like whoever wrote this has never been to the site and knows nothing of life in this community to have written this way, claiming that what is attempted to be done here is just like, oh, it's hand waving it away. It's already a visual element of the site. So more particularly, I want to echo Cliff's sentiment that there are mitigations that can be done. You have to try and match actual context of the neighborhood with the right kind of materials, sizes, geometry, etc. But what has been shown in this presentation, I appreciate the attempt. It's just not correct or credible. We need better comps. So if this proceeds anything like how it's being presented here, it really would destroy the residential character of the neighborhood. And talks of partial screening that we've heard here tonight, it's like partially bandaging a wound. And then just in closing here I really see this as kind of an equity aspect to this project, which starts with a technical question of why are we talking about needing to deliver increased quantities of water? What are we doing here? Are we supporting additional development, enabling growth, development in other areas? Whatever the
big screen. Now
whatever
I'm trying to go back to what I had. Oh, hold on. Now I sort of got quiet. I missed it. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to attempt to keep talking. Regardless of the technical details of why this project is going forward, this is a middle-class neighborhood that's going to be irrevocably impacted by this. It's going to bear negative externalities of enabling something that benefits the entire community. The character of the project, I think even at its best, is more in line with what you'd see down by the dump or underneath an overpass. And with regard to the pipeline thing, echoing Cliff's comment about negative impacts on our commercial district, why does the community of El Sobrante, which has been systemically ignored by the county, the city of Richmond for decades, have to continue to take second fiddle? So I just ask that as EBMUD proceeds from conceptual design into the further milestones on this project, the EIR simply has to be iterated to be credible, and the aesthetic impacts must be strongly mitigated. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dominic. I do want one point I want to emphasize, and I heard everything you said, and we'll take it into consideration, but I did want to note that what you're probably reading from our website is the project initial study, not the EIR itself. The initial study doesn't make statements solidly because it's an initial look, and the EIR provides a more detailed look. So we use language like may instead of will for that purpose, not to deceive or make claims without detailed analysis. So thank you for your comments.
Okay, is the working language for that then? If that is what hasn't been published, is there anything in an interim level that could be made available to the community? Because that's, as it stands there, doesn't really, it's not clear.
Yeah, the draft EIR would be the document that becomes available for review and comment. So that's what's coming up in, I think it was fall of 2023 to possibly early 2024. So you'll be seeing that soon, near the end of the year to early next year.
So I'm confused now. Where does our recommendation and feedback go if it's gonna come out 2023?
Yeah.
Are we
Yeah.
having impact here?
You
So-
should think of this as scoping and gathering feedback from the community that will be used to make sure that the EIR is, appropriately scoped to understand and address the concerns that have been raised by the community. Like I've said, this is early days. Late 2023 is when the draft EIR would come out. So that's a year from now.
Okay, thank you. But I hope that we can have our next meeting a little earlier than that before.
As I've said, we can have as many meetings as are deemed necessary to
Thank you very
go
much.
through an iteration of project concerns.
Okay, wonderful. So Marla, you're next. Unmute yourself. Thank you.
I'm Bruce, Marla's husband. The existing plant roars, and it's rarely silent in the neighborhood. When it gets quiet out, there's this background level of noise, and I'm wondering if there's a standard that the new plant or the new mechanical equipment, the new permanent mechanical equipment would be quieter, and whether that's quantified or whether that's a goal, and whether that's going to be any claims made about that, or could you discuss that?
Yeah, noise is something that's evaluated as a part of the environmental impact report. So there will be a noise. We're currently in the process of conducting the noise analysis, and we will discuss that in greater detail once the analysis is completed.
So the existing plant is being conducted. Yes.
The noise levels that are under existing and future conditions are being evaluated.
That's great. Okay, that's important.
Oh, and I had a question. Just to echo some concerns of my neighbors, is there any way to that the phase one structures could be set back further from amend than they are proposed to be set now?
Right. So going back to one of these maps. Sorry, that's
Okay.
so this is a plan view of the existing structures that are proposed.
Yeah.
And really the space is filled with facilities that are needed, and maintaining kind of a small area of traffic circulation for operation and maintenance of our facilities. We'll take a look at if there's any way we could move these facilities, but it's pretty tight. So we'll get back to you about that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Angela? Unmute, please.
Sorry. Okay, I've got a couple of things. First, I just want to say, when you guys with the 3 photos that you took, the first one at the entrance, the second one at Heavily Ridge, and the third one at the corner of Amanda Valley View is a total of 950 feet. The first 2 photos, the distance between that is 150 feet. You guys went an additional 785 feet before you took another photo or gave us a visual image of what the upgraded plant's going to look like. To me, that just says that you guys are purposely not trying to show us, or not trying to show these people what that plant's going to look like directly across from their home. So, I mean, that right there is just, you guys are starting this whole project off with the community very misleading, it looks like. And then your third photo is, down the street, up the hill, and it leaves a bad taste in people's mouths when it looks like you're purposely trying to mislead them as far as the aesthetics of what this thing's going to look like. Second, I'm worried that you keep calling it an upgrade, but it looks, and from everything I can tell, it's an expansion. So I'm wondering what your current capacity is right now and what your new capacity will be after you're done.
Yeah, so to address your first question, it's really not our intent to hide anything. When we pick these views, we pick them to try and represent a few different views. We can see if it's an option to add a few more, a view or two more, just to give a better sense. But I note your comment and will emphasize that that's not our intention at all. And then regarding your next question about whether it's an upgrade or expansion, I mean, some of the core treatment facilities are, I mean, everything is kind of a core treatment process, and I could dive into the process of the treatment plant and explain some of those elements to you, but I'll just kind of emphasize today that for the sake of time, that there's the facilities that are being replaced are pretty old and aging and kind of lower technology. And what we're providing here is more effective and is able to allow us to treat more water. And the reason that we need to do that is not because we drive those demand changes. Those are really driven by local land use. We have no control over how much development or growth happens. So hopefully that addresses your questions. And if you would like to have more answers to your questions, you can certainly, we can send you more information or provide more detail at another meeting.
Do you not know the current capacity and what the new capacity would be?
Yeah. So our permitted capacity is 60 million gallons per day, but because of changes to our treatment processes and our required treatment processes with water technologies, we're now only reliably able to treat 45 million gallons per day. So we're trying to bring the capacity of the water treatment plant back to its permitted 60 million gallons per day. And then in the future, the 80 million gallons per day is driven by demands.
Oh, wait, where'd the 80 come in? Because I heard 69 is what you're permitted for, 45 is what you're doing. Where's 80?
Yeah, so 80 is the phase 2 capacity. And that one is so that in the future, as there are more homes or businesses driven by kind of city development rules, we're able to meet those demands.
Okay, my other question is, this particular plant, when you had showed EBMUD's service area, you showed from San Pablo, Richmond, all the way to Crockett. What area does this specific plant, whose crap does it treat, basically?
So at the beginning, let's see. So this water treatment plant serves everything that's shown here in red, but EBMUD service area is larger than is shown here.
So you mean to tell me this plant processes homes in Rodeo and Crockett?
Just to be clear, this is for drinking water. This is not a wastewater facility. So somebody said something about crap. This is a drinking water treatment.
Well, sorry, I thought it was wastewater. So it services all of those cities from Crockett to Richmond.
That's correct.
And so my final question is there a current pipeline now? And
I'm sorry, Angela, but I have to cut you off.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you so much. I just want to be fair to other people who've been waiting. Rick, go ahead. Thanks for understanding, Angela.
Oh, thank you, Sohelia. And I would just like to say to Stella, Tan, and Director Young, thank you for making yourselves available, especially work on overtime like this. It's very appreciated. I agree with a lot of the comments that were previously voiced by Dominic and Cliff and Angela, but I'd like to touch on something new. The 54-inch pipeline running down San Pablo Dam Road, as was mentioned, is going to impact not only businesses, but it will really impact traffic. And right now, San Pablo Dam Road, at some early morning hours, it's like a parking lot. And I can only imagine what putting a large pipeline like that is going to do to traffic in the Bay Area. I mean, right now, the Dam Road is a major thoroughfare between Highway 24 and Highway 80. So, I mean, that really needs to be addressed, traffic flow. people have touched on noise. I'm concerned about noise not only for construction, but also for plant maintenance and operation. And that I'm looking forward to seeing the noise survey that you're presently doing. The other thing that I wanted to address is disinfection and purification of water. It's my understanding that that chlorine, large chlorine carboys were used to disinfect water some years ago. I don't know currently what is used, but I'm wondering, are there plans to store large quantities of chlorine on the premises, or have you gone to ozone for disinfection? And I think with that, the last thing that just occurred to me as I'm looking at this map, I know that this water treatment plant serves a huge area, Richmond, Hercules, Pinole. And I'm wondering, has any thought ever been given to running a pipeline from the reservoir out Castro Ranch Road, for instance, to the large open areas that are there between Castro Ranch Road and Pinole Valley Road? It seems like since this water treatment plant serves such a huge community, having a second treatment location might be a better solution and give you some redundancy in case of an earthquake. Anyway, those are the questions I had, and thank you for listening.
Thanks, Rick.
Yeah, so Rick, as you mentioned, the traffic and noise, those will both be addressed in the environmental impact report. So you'll get more information about that once our analysis is completed. Regarding your questions on disinfection, you know, Tim or Dave might need to correct me or might speak better to this, but the format of chlorine disinfection that we use, I don't believe it's a wet format that comes into the water treatment plant. I think it's something that gets mixed in, so we don't keep a unstable form of chlorine at the water treatment plant. And we do use ozone as well as a part of our facility, and we generate that on site.
Yeah, Stella, I'd like some confirmation on that, because some years ago, I was actually at that plant. There were chlorine carboys, 1,000-pound chlorine carboys on site, and they were being used in conjunction with ozone for disinfection. So expanding the plant might also mean expanding the amount of chlorine gas, which is extremely toxic if there were to be a leak on site in a residential community.
Right. Yeah, and I'm pretty certain that we don't use chlorine gas at our facility.
Dave, or I am highly confident that we do not. We use sodium hypochlorite, dry form of chlorine for our disinfection.
Right, and I would agree with you, Marguerite Young. We did use chlorine gas back when I first visited the plant back in the mid 90s. We have been transitioning, and I think we have, but to be quite honest, our water treatment plant experts aren't in this meeting. I'd have to ask them, and we'd have to get back to you specifically what's there and how we store it.
Thanks, Timothy, because as you know, chlorine carboys, if one of those cylinders were to leak, it could cause a fatality. It could cause a lot of fatalities near that plant.
Thank you, Rick. With that, we go to Cheryl, and we're lucky to have the president of the West County Wastewater with us tonight. Go ahead, Cheryl, please. Also a neighbor.
Thank you so much, Soheila. Yeah, a couple of things. Someone asked earlier about whether it is water or wastewater. So some of you may know that, and some of you may not know, that West County Wastewater actually partners with EBMUD to handle the wastewater treatments for all of our neighborhood here, and for much of this area that you see on the screen up through Pinole, and not past a portion of Pinole, not Hercules or Rodeo or Crockett. So it is that concern is not or shouldn't be what we're discussing here tonight. I actually live at the top, right off of the Heavenly Reach, at the top of this area that we're discussing tonight. And my concerns are the same as much of you, because I am a neighbor here, and we've lived here since 2000 in this house. I think that much of what's been discussed, especially with the terms of aesthetics and what we can do to make sure that yes, okay, the facilities suit our neighborhood is important. I think what's most important to me as a scientist, I'm a cell and molecular biologist and biochemist by training, is I want to make sure that if we're going to see these projects through, yes, we want a nice building. We want it to look good. We want it to fit into the neighborhood. But most importantly, to spend this amount of money, public monies, because EBMUD is spending public monies, is that we have the most technologically advanced and the best type of treatment center that we can get. So I want those kind of questions answered. Well, who are the engineers? What are the engineering companies that you're working with to make sure that we're getting not just another so-called upgrade, because the person earlier said something about the upgrade, and it sounds like Ms. Marguerite, and I know that we've talked before about this, but that we're getting the best possible way to not just treat water, but to re-resource this water, because the state that California is in right now with water, we have to be doing the best type of collection and screening and straining, and when we talk about chlorine or ozone, chemical addition and coagulation and flocculation and sedimentation and clarification and the filtration and disinfection, all of the steps we take, and finally storage and distribution of the water as possible, and all of those 7 or 8 stages that is going to take to get us back as much of that water when it flows out that it flows back in. What is EBMUD doing to make sure that in the end, forget all the aesthetics, in the end, we are getting the best that our money could possibly buy in this system that's forward thinking, and that is the best systems that's going to be in our neighborhoods. That yes, the noise is going to be down. Yes, it's going to look pretty, but I don't want something that looks pretty that's not functional for our neighborhoods. We're going to have to redo it again in 10, 15 years. So what are we doing to make sure that that happens? Who are the engineers that you're working with? And what are we going to make sure that that works? Because Richmond did this and it looked good, and then it all fell apart. And now baykeepers have to sue them. And so we want to make sure that this system is serving our neighborhood as well as looking good and making sure that it doesn't smell. So can you answer that, please?
Yeah, thank you for your comments, Cheryl. I will speak to that, and maybe with the image helps a little bit. I would say one of the biggest improvements that we're making at this water treatment plant is that it currently doesn't have a chlorine contact basin, which allows us to kind of disinfect in the way that is the most effective and efficient under current water treatment standards. So that's a big improvement for us. We're also considering drought. The new facilities allow us to further reclaim water that would have been wasted and sent to the sewer. So that's a really important part of this upgrade as well. And in terms of what companies will be doing the design, we haven't identified that yet because we're currently in the planning phases. But our EBMUD engineers are definitely looking out for long-term reliability and as well as effective treatment processes internally, because this is, we do feel like these facilities are going to be owned and managed by us, and it's a huge priority to us that we're able to operate and maintain them very effectively. So your concerns are definitely going to be addressed, and this upgrade is going to be a wonderful improvement for this water treatment plant. So thank you for your comments.
Thank you very much. Ray, please unmute yourself and ask your question or comment. Ray Mojica, are you here?
Hi, this is Ray. Hello, everybody. I'm not too good in Zoom. I just got in. I just saw this on the website and I thought I'd participate because I've been here for over 40 years. And just to add, I'm just want to say that EBMUD has been a great company. I'm a retiree from EBMUD, and I look over the plant from the top of my house up in the hill as well. So I've been here for 40 years, and I just have a couple of the good comments. I have no problems with the design and everything else. The location, I'm more concerned with the aesthetic. I guess on Ahmed Road, I guess Stella, here's a question. I know Ahmed Road is a very busy street going up the hill from Valley View. I know there's a stop sign which doesn't work down on Ahmed Road and Valley View. Sometimes it's on, sometimes it's off. But in any case, I guess what I'm looking at is, first of all, as far as the landscaping that's along Ahmed Road, I know on Valley View, there's that hill there. It's pretty tough to get in and get out to restructure the entrance. But in any case, Ahmed Road is the main road to get into the facility. And I know those tree structure that's along Ahmed Road, I guess, can those mainly, those are located on the flat areas of that field out there that's open now. And can they improve more on Ahmed Road as far as a little more landscaping or push the fence down a little bit? And secondly, on Ahmed Road, there's only one sidewalk where the resident side is. And my question is there a possibility of extending the existing, I guess it's a 3-foot concrete sidewalk from the firehouse all the way up to Ahmed Road as well, so people can use that? As far as I know, people walk down from Ahmed Road from the top of the hill or ride down their bikes or whatever. Is there any consideration as far as adding a sidewalk from the firehouse on the EBMUD side all the way up to your entrance? I was wondering if there's a possibility of looking into that. And as far as for the 3 structure that's along Ahmed Road, I guess they're only there won't be too high there. They're not buildings. They're facility structures. Can that move down a little bit towards the center of the building a little bit, just to gain more, just to gain the sidewalk as well as move down the fence and add more landscaping there, just to cover up the facilities? I know it's be landscaping, just adding a little more, probably keep people around that area, especially for the people that's living across the street. That's the first comment I have. So just wondering what your comments would be.
Thank you.
So regarding moving the equalization basins up here back, let me see. These ones here.
Yes.
Those ones, the location of those equalization basins was selected partially because we need to be able to gravity flow from the existing water treatment plant down to this location. And in order to do that, putting it at this location was most effective at reducing the amount of soil excavation that's required, and as a result, kind of truck trips. But regarding the landscaping, adding a sidewalk is something we had not intended to do, because if you go beyond our property, it really doesn't go anywhere. Like, there's no other sidewalk. So from a safety perspective, we don't prefer to put a sidewalk there. But we can evaluate if there's any opportunities to move the EQ basin back at all.
You gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
That was the only concern I have, basically. But overall, hopefully the project will be great.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Stella.
Thank you.
I had Ian before, but now I see Galaxy S10. Go ahead, please.
Hello, my name's John Vanny. My question is, can any of the facilities be put underground, especially the equalization basins out front? Over at the SFPUC, they have an underground wastewater plant. I think it handles 150 MGD in wet weather. That you wouldn't even know that there was a wastewater plant there. And Also, you're talking about soils removal or excavation. If some of that soils can be saved to create a berm to kind of hide the plant from the public, that's one thing I had. The work going along San Pablo Dam Road, have you guys talked to other utilities to coordinate any type of work that's out there so everything's done at one time instead of piecemeal? And also the lighting, would the lighting be the low Kellam lighting, like 2700 warm white, as opposed to the a brighter white thing? And is the facility operational 24/7? Is there personnel on site 24/7? You were talking about security. Now, just curious if it's an unmanned facility. I can see why you're concerned about seeing through, but if there's someone on site, you have personnel. That's it.
Yeah, so your first question is about burying the equalization basins, and they are already very deeply buried. Off the top of my head, I recall it's about 50 feet or something like that. It's pretty deep as it is. And so are many of these facilities that are shown here. In addition, you mentioned coordination of utility work, and that is our general practice, is to work with other agencies to try and coordinate work. And lighting, you mentioned, you were asking about certain types of lighting. We generally try to avoid having lighting go into homes, so they're at least angled away, if not more, but that will be discussed in greater detail in our aesthetics section of the environmental impact report. So you can learn more about that there when it's completed. And for security, we generally don't have like a big security team on site. So we don't rely on someone to be doing that, as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I'm aware. But what we can take a closer look at the options, but it's definitely our security standard to, especially for a facility that supplies so much water to so many people, to make sure that it's safe, using all the best measures.
When I say security, I mean, someone on site. So if they had to call the police or the sheriff, they would have someone respond right away. And when I meant buried, I meant an underground facility where it's covered by the earth. It looks like you have some clarifiers, the round tanks. I don't know if they're clarifiers, the circular tanks out there. Then you have the equalization basins. If you have the equalization basins as a covered structure with earthen covered, I think you would create a blend where you don't see the facility behind it from the residential area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll take a look at that option, and we'll follow up about the current design.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna let Adrian go first, if you don't mind, Angela, because you asked a question before. And then I also have 4 questions here on the paper. I hope we get a chance, and I hope we can wrap it up in 10, maximum 15 minutes. I really appreciate your time and patience, Stella, as well as Marguerite and the entire East Bay team, as well as all you neighbors. I really thank you for coming and voicing your concerns. Adrian, go ahead, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so looking at the existing structures of EBMUD, I mean, they're pretty packed, all together. And then looking at proposed structures, they really quite sparse and far apart from each other. And also it's slightly skewed sort of perception of the scale of those structures, because if you look at the other one rendering, well, actually this is rendering, but the one that looks more like a bird view, you can see that there's a quite large space between the structures. On this rendering, it looks much more closer to each other, but on other one it looks way more sparse. And also nobody mentioned about anything, but it's also quite obvious that basically the entire field will be paved with the asphalt or concrete or whatever it's going to be. And my biggest problem as well is the fact that EBMUD is trying to push this completely industrial setting into very residential neighborhood vibe, and which EBMUD Road never had in the past. The existing structures were for at least last 40 years in a back in the field, far away, and now EBMUD is proposing to have these structures right few feet away from EBMUD. And during my last sort of presentation during our last meeting, I also expressed my concerns about why structures are being planned so close to EBMUD Road. Why can we not create this at least 100 feet away from EBMUD Road, create this green belt full of vegetation, create a berm, like some residents already mentioned, and hide it as much as possible and create that safety with security fence that will be fully obstructed from public view, because current design is really, honestly, it's quite horrible. I'm just going to be honest. I completely against current proposal of the structures, and honestly they can be, I don't know why the structures cannot be closer to existing ones and maybe even rotated on an angle that is close to what existing structures are. I mean, it's completely rotated 180 degrees from existing ones. Why is it so much sparse space between all those new structures and so close to EBMUD Road? I mean, that I guess is the biggest problem for pretty much everyone online here, is that EBMUD is just pushing all this industrial feel so close to residential street and our neighborhood. That will definitely going to impact the property values, just based on the first impression. When people drive up, they don't know if it's a sewer treatment plant or is it correction facility, because looking at that is not something that people would like to maybe purchase home in this neighborhood based on that. So EBMUD should be able to do everything in their power to conceal and hide this facility as much as possible. I'm all for progress, I'm all for upgrades, but current proposal is absolutely horrible. I mean, I cannot accept the fact that, like beautiful field will be filled up with completely concrete bunkers and security fence just a few feet away from EBMUD Road. That's all I have to say. But also I would like to mention that, we were talking about noise pollution during this meeting. And I just want to briefly to say that, when I first saw 2 years ago, new signs about treatment plant having upgrades and stuff, I was really happy because, like I said, I'm all for progress, for modernization of equipment to make it more efficient. But during those 2 years, it became obvious that there's a consistent harm that's coming from the facility of EBMUD. So I don't know what kind of upgrades you have done, and I even contacted EBMUD on several occasions and being disregarded that noise is coming from EBMUD plant. So I don't know if it's exhaustion vents or exhaustion fans that they have installed, but there's a constant low frequency hum that is coming from direction of the existing plant. So I'm just only can imagine what type of hum is going to be added on existing one once all these facilities will be built on site based on current proposal. That's all from me.
Thank you, Adrienne. I believe that was just a comment. So Stella, would you like to say something or should we move on?
Yeah, I think in the interest of time, we should move on, but thank you for your comments, Adrienne. We did get your email the last time we held a meeting, and I appreciate your input.
Thank you. Ian, go ahead, please. You need to unmute.
Hi, sorry, I'm getting off the ferry. I was actually just hoping that we would be able to have access to the guidelines and considerations that are being used for the security of the facility. I don't know if they're local, state, or federal, but physical security, I understand, is important. I was just hoping to see and have available to us the materials that you're using to make these decisions so that we can be on the same page.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much. If you could email such documents, if there is any, I'll be happy to share it with the community. Just send me the link. Or if you have it, you can share it now too.
We can bring one of our security folks to one of our next meetings. Just be aware that some of the security actions, measures, guidelines that we have to follow, we can't share. They're confidential and you know, high level.
Yeah, I understand that. I actually work in security. I was hoping to understand some of the documentation that you are willing to share, not the actual plans or operational procedures that you're going to be following. I understand.
Yeah, no, I think we
impossible.
can, yeah, no, I think we can bring, you know, our somebody from our security staff to talk about the things that we take into consideration and why we're concerned, what we're concerned about with regard to security. It's not really crime that we're concerned about.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. Thank you.
Okay,
I
thank you.
didn't want that to be in a front.
We also had a request for the architect to be present at the next meeting or maybe a separate meeting. Because there seems to be many comments and questions about the architecture. With your permission, I'm gonna read some of the comments and questions I have received. I'll try to go over them quickly. One of them is, I prefer BERM, not wall, and not just a fence. That's a comment from Elliot. Susan wrote, can you ask whether the only entrance to the enlarged facility will be on Amend? Can there also be an entrance on Valley View? I realize that we need clean water, but I'm also concerned about the increased traffic. Heather says, I own my house on Amend Road in Sobrante and Fraud and discuss at the proposed EBMUD water treatment facility expansion. The natural landscape in the area and the wildlife it supports gives this neighborhood its charm. If natural plants, trees, and brushes were added to surround the exteriors of the new facility, that soft escape could conceal the otherwise obtrusive concrete structures. Please, on behalf of homeowners in this area, consider redesigning the expansion to include landscape, a walking path, and neutral space to buffer the street sides of the site. The appearance of the treatment facility in Orinda is a good example of how plants and trees and buffer zone between the fencing around the facility and the street and residences can be achieved. Houses are the largest investment one can make, and the majority of income goes into them. When we purchase our house in this area, we hope the homes would increase in value. We keep our yards landscaped and maintained to increase curb appeal and give the neighborhood a safe, clean, attractive aesthetic. Keeping this in mind, please redesign your expansion as if you lived next door. I also have a comment from Tim who says, regarding the proposed expansion, as a local resident near the EBMUD site, I have several concerns about the proposal. Aesthetics of the neighborhood. The existing facility is unobtrusive and largely blends into the landscape. This would change drastically, especially for residents along a main road and connecting streets. The proposed plan includes no provision for hiding the facility behind the BRM and only a prison type yard, barbed wire fence just few feet away from a main road would separate the facility from a residential neighborhood. This would severely impact the quality of life of the surrounding neighborhood. Counter proposal. One, and earthen BRM, is it BRM or berm? Sorry, I'm not familiar with the pronunciation. Should be built. Berm, thank you. Berm should be, because they use capital, built to hide the facility from a main road. Two, security fencing should be aesthetically designed. A basic chain link and barbed wire fence is unacceptable in a fully residential neighborhood. Three, adequate landscaped green space buffer zone of at least 50 feet should be installed between the sidewalk and the berm/fence. Building right up to the road is unacceptable. The other subject, construction noise, debris, dust. There will be several years of disruption around the construction zone. This area is a long-established quiet residential neighborhood. A large industrial construction site absolutely does not belong here. Operating noise, lighting, traffic. The long-term implications of the facility's operation will significantly degrade the quality of life for nearby residents due to major disruptions in nighttime darkness, quiet enjoyment, and commercial vehicle traffic. None of this belongs in a residential neighborhood. Environmental concerns. The open field is a watershed for local creeks and serves as a collection basin for a storm drain runoff. This needs to be addressed. Questions about the necessity of the facility. With little new development in the area, what purpose does this major expansion have? Last question or comment from Rosemary. We are not able to attend owing to other commitment, just learning about this. Certainly noise from the operation of this plant, as well as its construction, pollution, disposal of toxic chemicals, and traffic are all concerns in regard to this project. Overlooking an eyesore from the hills we live on is another concern. Will landscaping and fencing be used to mitigate these issues? And what about wildlife, which include deer, squirrels, raccoons, and residents, and the migrating birds be driven away by not only the construction, but also long-term operation of this plant? What other city properties were considered that might be less of an impact on the amend adjacent area, possibly nearer to the damage, more remote? Those were the questions that I received, and I would like to ask you to please let us know when all the feedback and comment and questions you received tonight may have an impact on the existing plans, and you may consider a change or evaluating whether with some increased cost, you could like turn those buildings 90 degrees, as Adrian suggested, or push them to the back, as Ingrid suggested, or have the entrance on Valley View Road. Although it's very steep, there is enough room for a large zigzag to move the entrance to that side. When would you be able to incorporate those so we can have the next meeting?
I can answer that question. So there's a lot of questions, and there's a lot of work to be done to address some of these questions. So we're probably looking at early next year before we can come back and provide responses and bring additional people with us. We'd be happy to bring our security, our architect with us, and any other sub-consultants that we would need. But we're probably looking at early next year.
Very good, like January or February.
I think I'd be better if we can take a look and get back to you on that one.
Very good, very good.
Confirm.
That's a rough idea. Excellent, thank you very much. So again, I really appreciate your time, your attention, your listening to the residents. And as a summary, so basically we would like to see all the possible changes you could do in terms of the fence, location of the building, entrance on Valley View Road, having a walkway around it, and yeah, and also the treatment process and forward-looking system that we can have, and security. And we can talk about those in 3-4 months. We'll look forward to hearing from you. But I want to sincerely thank you again, Stella. Thank you so much for answering all the questions. And Marguerite Director Young, thank you so much for your time. And thank you for promising to be in touch with us in as many meetings as it takes to make sure we can reconcile the community and East Bay MUD to make it a win-win situation for all of us.
Yeah, thank you everyone for attending.
Yeah, and if we can get a copy of the recording, I think that would be helpful, so we can go back and make sure we captured all the questions.
I'll definitely share it with you. I'll share it with the community as well.
Thank you.
Sohaila, and the chat as well, I think would be helpful to share with Dave and Stella so that they can review
believe-
the questions
I-
or comments that weren't raised by people vocally or verbally?
Sure, I don't know how to incorporate the chat with the video,
If-
but you can save the chat now and I'll save the chat as well. Yeah, anybody I believe can save the chat, but I'll do it too.
Yeah, I've been saving it for us.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
Okay.
I do want, sorry. I do want to say thank you to the East Bay MUD representatives. We do appreciate it and we do.
You got cut off, Angela. You need to unmute yourself.
Sorry, I was saying, I just wanted to say thank you to the East Bay MUD representatives for allowing us to take so much of their time tonight.
Yeah, really, after hours, and it was supposed to be an hour and it's nearly 2 hours. Thank you, Mona. Thank you to all of you. Dave.
Was that already?
Yeah, thank
Great.
you so much. And thank you all neighbors for coming, and we'll meet again in a few months. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Have a good
Bye.
one. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Couldn't get on in the class today.